Retail crime has increased by more than 50% over the past year.
A surge in crime has shopkeepers worried for their safety.
Only a couple of weeks into the new year, gang violence has erupted. 2 Michael Hill jewellery stores have been robbed in broad daylight in as many days. And the security of supermarket staff has been put under the spotlight after a staff member was stabbed.
And violent and aggressive behaviour in stores nearly doubled since October.
Retailers have been crying out for better protection for years. Now, for many, that comes in the form of a New Zealand-invented app for retailers and police. It is Auror.
Auror, a New Zealand company founded in 2012, is a rapidly growing retail crime reporting platform that allows retailers to upload incidents, photos and data on suspected thieves, enabling police to access the information even without formal complaints.
But why is it getting headlines like shopping, surveillance and snitching? How Auror is watching you shop. I'm Sharon Brett-Kelly. Today on The Detail, the crime-fighting tool that's touching all our lives that many of us had never heard of until this.
RNZ understands a shoplifting allegation has been made against former Green MP Golriz Garaman. The incident is alleged to have occurred at a Pack and Save supermarket late last year.
Then this.
Police have decided not to file charges after a shoplifting accusation was made against former Green MP Golriz Garaman.
So what does that have to do with Auror? And why is it being linked with the word surveillance? Well, let's go back to the beginning with CEO Phil Thompson, who started it with 2 co-founders.
So we came across the problem around retail crime here in New Zealand. It was an article in the newspaper, $2 million every day being stolen, and we didn't quite believe that to be true. So we went out and spoke to a whole lot of retailers on the front line, and yes, financially, big problem, but actually the impact on the people in the store was what really got us interested, because the violence, the abuse, the threatening behaviour, this was our frontline workers, your 16-year-old in their first job, your 65-year-old grandmother doing their last job, and they were facing this every single day. But what we uncovered was that actually it was just really hard to report those crimes to police, and when they were dealing with police, it was really hard for the police to then investigate those crimes. So we saw the opportunity around how do you bring technology in to make it easier for retailers to actually understand what's going on in their stores around crime after it happened, and then actually work closer with police and allow police to do their jobs more effectively as well.
And now 90% of the big brand retailers in New Zealand use
correct.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not in the little dairies and all of those kind of shops?
No, it's not. No, it's the retailers that face the most crime in terms of the volume, which would be your retail chains generally, and they're the ones that are also seeing these repeat offenders going right across their store network and offending in a fairly organised fashion. Also in Australia? Yeah, so we're in New Zealand, Australia, the US, Canada and the UK as well.
And now what, a $500 million company?
Ballpark in terms of our last investment round, but the way that we look at it is just that there's a big problem that we're going to try and solve with technology. And we're really proud to be doing that here from New Zealand and then taking that to the world. Now, though, you're getting headlines like what we saw in Webworm, shopping, surveillance and snitching, how Auror is watching you shop. How damaging is this? I think there's a lot of misinformation and people are almost combining different theories together on what we do. And sorry to say, but we're not tracking every shopper. We're not tracking any shoppers, in fact. It's simply about when a crime occurs in a store, making it easy for that store to report that crime and provide that information to police. We're not cameras, we're not live video surveillance, we're purely the method of giving a report and evidence and making it really easy for that to be given to police to then go and investigate those crimes that are occurring. But is this crime fighting through surveillance? No, quite simply, it's about how do you make it easier to investigate a crime after it's happened. Okay, so I think I need to understand better about how it works. Does it start outside the supermarket, for example, through the number plate identification? So let's say 2 people are in a store and they take goods without paying for them and leave. It's witnessed by a security guard or a store manager in that store. They're going to make a report on what they saw happen and include video footage, photos, receipts, witness statements. That's the primary initial purpose, and then that then informs the police of what's occurred in that store. If that person or that group are targeting multiple stores, the platform will then, and those reports are being made, the platform will then be able to suggest to that investigator, hey, we believe that these two crimes are linked to the same person. So it just makes that whole process more efficient around going, okay, it's not an individual incident we're looking at, it's someone who's committed 10, 20, 30 of these things in the last 60 days. And so it allows for the investigation process to be a lot faster. And then some retailers are also looking at how can they be more proactive around stopping crime. So some of them will have things like license plate recognition in their car parks. So if someone comes back to that store who's historically been violent or aggressive or has been involved in multiple attempts or offences in those stores, they'll be alerted that that person's back on site, and so that they can then proactively go and intervene before they've stolen something again.
How would they do that? I mean, is it about tracking that person as they go around the store?
No. In that case, it will be a number plate. So if the vehicle comes back, then the security guard will get the alert that that vehicle is back and it's historically been involved in previous events, so then they can then engage before they've had a chance to go and steal again.
Are you saying that the person arrives in their car, there's a number plate recognition of that person who might, a recidivist offender? When they get to the store, are they stopped by the security guard there? Is that how it works?
It would depend on the situation. So I think the important thing is by providing the right information to that security guard, they can make a decision on what their action should be. So if the person's been trespassed, they could then intervene early on, say, we know that you've been trespassed. If they've been known to carry a weapon and they have that information, they can then go, do you know what, I'm actually not going to engage because it's dangerous and it protects their own safety for that. Or they might go, we're going to call the police because we know this is a known person who has been violent in the past as well. But it gives the retailer the opportunity of trying to stop a crime in their store and rather than allowing that to occur with these repeat people.
Are they putting up a flag or something, though? Does say, a recidivist offender, repeat offender, have an immediate red flag on their name, on their number plate? I mean, because what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is that there must be so much data now going to the police. Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of reports around crime going to the police. Yes, because there's a lot of retail crime that's occurring, unfortunately, across the country. But this is not just, police aren't surveilling people and they're not tracking people. So, a good example, historically, a retailer would inform the police about an incident like this, and each store would do that separately. So you might have a different detective looking at each different case. If it's of a low value, it may not be worthwhile pursuing that investigation because it would cost too much to actually investigate it. Or if they did investigate it, it's one single incident. What you're seeing now is the police going, okay, actually we can investigate that person or that group because they've done multiple events. So it makes their job a lot easier and faster to do. And what you end up seeing is that the police can then do more around retail crime, but also they're then freed up to do more around other serious crime across the community as well.
Let me put it another way. Someone has to shoplift or do something that is potentially criminal in the store before it's flagged up to the police.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is there room for mistakes to be made?
That's exactly how it works. And when these trained users, so you're talking about security guards and senior store members on the retail side, they've been given training around what they do from their own organisation and policies in place, and they'll provide evidence. It's still up to the police to investigate that and make sure that either a crime has been committed and it's worthwhile pursuing. And so it's no different than going down to the police station and reporting something that you've seen in your own neighbourhood across to the police. They've still got to do their job on their side as well. We're just making it faster and easier for the police to actually go and investigate that crime.
And much faster. I mean, within minutes. Is that right?
Exactly. So that's a key component. And the other thing we do by making it easier for police to work with retailers is that police can also ask the retail community, and for more serious crime, do you have information or evidence that's going to help us solve a kidnapping or a homicide as well? And rather than having to put out social media posts and appeals, they can ask the retailer directly, do you have this information? And if you do for a crime, retailers can then help them solve those crimes as well.
And who has access to this information? The retailers, the security people and the police?
So the retailers have access to their own information, and they choose to provide access to police for those events that involve some criminal activity. And on the police side, then police officers and their intelligence team will have access to that as well.
If it's not number plate, if that alert doesn't come up through the number plate, how is that person identified? It's not by facial recognition, or is it?
No, so that's a very separate technology. So, some retailers are looking at, or, I think Food Stuffs is a good example where they've come out publicly and said that they're trialling it to help with violence in their stores. They're using live facial recognition. That's an interesting technology that's being looked at globally. And again, if you look at in New Zealand context, it's already been used for over the last decade in airports and casinos and major events. We help in terms of image matching around repeat offenders. So if there are 2 different events uploaded into the platform, we can suggest to that retail investigator that those 2 events might be linked by the image. We're not doing any live facial recognition, but we help them to do their jobs faster. Historically, they would look at multiple files, like, again, paper reports and images, and make those connections over days or weeks. We just help them do that job faster.
Image. So what if it's not a photograph? What is it?
So that would be a photograph, but that's a historical. So that's after someone's committed an event. That's comparing two events that have been committed against each other. But live facial recognition would include providing an alert in that store, which is what Food Stuffs have been trialling here in New Zealand.
But I still don't understand if you're not using facial recognition, when it's image sharing and it's after the fact. But what about when that person's in the store at the time live? How is that recognition made?
For those that are using Auror, they're still relying on the security guard in the store to recognise that person walking into that store. Human recognition.
Really?
Yep. Because historically, live facial recognition has been a very delicate subject. And again, historically, the technology hasn't been accurate enough. That's changed a lot in the last couple of years, and you're seeing that now with these trials occurring. But you're still relying on the human to do the verification either way. And then traditionally, it's just about going, okay, now the security guard's aware that in the area, here are the 5 people that are known to offend on a daily basis, so that they're more aware of what's going on in their area.
Well, as we've mentioned, most people had never heard of Auror until the New Zealand Herald's David Fisher broke the story about how Golriz Garaman was shopping at Pak'nSave the day before she was due to appear at the High Court to appeal her sentence for shoplifting last October. Here's Fisher explaining it.
As she was walking about the store, she was placing items in her shopping trolley and also into a tote bag sitting in a shopping trolley. She was stopped by store security. She was asked to empty her bags, and she did that. At that stage, she wasn't near the checkout. She hadn't approached the checkout. Now, what we know happened after that is that the security staff used a platform called Auror, through which to enter details of what they considered to be a retail crime incident.
RNZ's Phil Pennington has also been following Auror, and you'll hear Phil talk about the ANPR cameras. He's talking there about the automatic number plate recognition.
Now, the police, they never named Ms Garaman in their statements, but they said that this related to an incident on the 12th of October. In the end, they investigated, but they didn't file any charges on that. Pak'nSave, they actually said, this is the curious thing, they said it wasn't them that alerted police to the Ms Garaman footage, but the footage is in the system, or the Auror system, because Pak'nSave's cameras are linked to that system, and police can access that system and do so really regularly. Auror says there are limits on what police can access, but if they do access, then it's up to the police what they do about that. So in this case, police have gone in, they've seen this footage that they've gone, that looks like, and they allege that that was shoplifting, and then they've investigated it. They've said that retailers are able to report incidents to them via the platform. They say that in the Golriz Garaman case, a police file number was assigned the same day that they became aware of the incident. They assessed it a couple of days later, and they did routine screening of alleged shoplift offending. They've said that they're satisfied that all of this was handled responsibly and appropriately. But quite what was flagged or whatever like that, we don't know, and we're unlikely to be able to find out because it's not going to go to court.
You have followed up with the police, the Privacy Commissioner and Auror on the Golriz Garaman case. Let's go through those different agencies' responses. What are the police telling you?
So possibly the most interesting thing there is that police say that they have actually been doing an assurance review of how they use Auror. That's been underway since mid-2024. We don't have the results of that. They also say at the same time they've been doing an audit of the use of private companies' automated number plate recognition platforms, and they're currently considering the findings of that. We have put an official information request in for the findings of that. That's from police. From the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, no, it's not going away, Sharon, because they say they are looking into this Golriz Garaman case. They're interested because of the potential around privacy risk and breaches of that. They say there's potential for significant adverse impacts to individuals from the use of ANPR and CCTV surveillance. That's obviously covering both, out-of-store number plates and now in-store. And they're saying, okay, we're seeking more information from that, from Auror, Foodstuffs, which run Pack and Save, and police, to understand what went on around that incident. But they aren't saying when that's, when they expect to get a result from that. And often with the OPC, we find that for Office of the Privacy Commissioner, it's a bit of a challenge to find out what they actually found. And sometimes when you do get their findings, you think, well, they didn't seem to have asked this question or that question, yeah.
You did send us emails showing your, your workings on this, and it felt like really the response of the Privacy Commissioner and the police kind of left me wanting to ask more questions.
Yeah, for instance, on that, we've always been asking, well, how many of these cameras are there that are linked into the ANPR systems, of which there's more than one. There's another one called Safer Cities that police also access. It's much smaller. Now, a couple of years ago, I reported that it was at least 5,000 cameras. Now, who knows? It could be 10,000 or more. But no one is able or prepared to say how many, to the point, in fact, where this came up in the court cases last year, and the courts could not get that information from Auror, which didn't provide it on the basis of commercial sensitivity. Now, that's really important because it's the scale of this that is part of the questions and has raised some of the concerns about it. The fact that it is so widespread, and yet we can't actually pin down how widespread it is. So even on that basic question of how many cameras, I'm not sure. So there's an element here of concern because the police themselves are a step removed. So the public and the ability to question is a step removed. Yeah,
so is the question that also sits with the Privacy Commissioner, is it that we need more transparency here? Is it a case of stores making it really clear to customers that they're using Auror?
Yeah, I mean, the Office of the Privacy Commissioner have identified a high potential privacy risk here, Sharon. They've noted that number plates can identify people because it can identify the owner, and that can constitute personal information, and if it's personal information, it comes under privacy law. But part of the court challenge last year was in fact arguing that the number plate technology did gather personally identifiable information, and that if you combine that with being able to know where a car was over a 60-day period, that constituted tracking a person. So that's the argument against the number plate stuff, which we know more about than we know about the in-store person use of this. But in the courts, I've got to hasten to say, two judges have dismissed that argument. They're saying the 60-day log does not make the information personal or confidential. They basically said there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in relation to a number plate. They said a request for information which captures a person in a public space cannot constitute a search. This is crucial because the challenge, which was by the Public Defence Service, partly, they are concerned about this and the spread of this and whether this constituted mass surveillance, was that this was a search. When police use the ANPR number plate system, it's a search. That's what they've argued in the court challenge. The judges have said, no, it's not a search because you can't expect privacy in a public space. So if it's not a search, police don't need a warrant or one of those orders that they need. They can go ahead and do this as they are doing en masse.
Right.
Yeah, that's really important. So that was really a landmark thing. That was late last year that those rulings were reached. So that's half a dozen cases of crimes that were committed, but where some of the evidence of identifying the persons involved relied on Auror's number plate technology. Judges basically said, have at it. This is an efficient and useful tool. People cannot expect that this won't be used on them.
Back to Auror's Phil Thompson. I asked him about the Garraman case. He said the footage belongs to the retailer and the police, not Auror. But how does he explain how someone got hold of the story and it landed in the headlines?
I think there's, again, probably more for the police or food stuff to comment on if indeed it did get out. I understand that, again, when there's court processes in place, those are public hearings as well. So there's multiple ways that information can be received. I'm very confident in the security of the platform itself. And again, the processes that our users take to upload information and use it in the right way as well.
Is the information, the data that's collected, shared across all retail outlets who are signed up with Auror?
Not generally, no. So a retailer can decide if they've got a trusted partnership with another retailer, they can decide to share between those two customers, but it's not by default open. And it's not open to the public. It's generally closed for a retailer on their own network. And then, like I said, the police have got a broader view, only in the sense of that they can see if 5 retailers decide to share with police, they'll be able to see the totality of that offending for those individuals.
And is that the join the dots concept here? Is that how that works?
It is, because again, historically, it's been siloed information. So each store would know what's happened in their own store, and each retailer would know what's happened in their own network. All we're doing now is just shining a light on how much retail crime is going on, and the people who are doing this as their full-time job.
How many cameras would you have access to?
We don't directly integrate with the cameras themselves, and that's again another sort of misconception, is that when someone's uploading an event of a crime, they'll then upload the evidence that will come from their camera system, but we're not providing police with live video.
Well, the data that you collect comes from how many cameras? Because we're talking about private cameras as well as public cameras that are in public spaces. Is that right?
No. So again, like a retailer will already have their own camera system in place, and they've had that for 30 plus years. They're purely uploading the evidence from that camera system after a crime's happened to that as well. So that makes it really easy. In terms of things like if police request information, so you're talking about for vehicles, for instance, or if they're investigating a serious crime, they're asking the retailer, do you have information on that vehicle or at this time and place? And the retailer's then providing the information back, again, just making us the USB stick of that as well. So it's not our camera system or network.
Right, okay. I guess what's come up is the fact that this data, this information happens now so rapidly, like I think it's within minutes, that someone can be identified, but also that Auror has also expanded incredibly rapidly, and, that you've got this really important partnership with the police in New Zealand, Australia and the US. And is it happening faster than people can keep up with in terms of grasping what this all means in terms of privacy and transparency and sharing of information?
I don't think so. I think if you're an everyday Kiwi, there's absolutely nothing to worry about, because there's not tracking your shopping. If you're a criminal, yes, life's getting harder for you because you can't get away with it so easily. And those are the people that are probably most worried about their privacy, because it's harder for them to get away with committing crime. I think some people try and twist it to make it sound sinister that the police are more effective and efficient at their job. But again, as a community, that's what we want.
That's it for today. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and NZ On Air. Thanks to Phil Thompson and Phil Pennington. This episode was engineered by William Saunders and produced by Gwen McClure. I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. Ka kite.